You don't have to write anything. You could just answer in your head, but some people actually might want to write as they're thinking, as they're listening. Yeah, did you want to say something?
Yes. Welcome to Iron Center Israel Meetup in English. We've been long requested to do a meetup in English for all the fellow English speakers or English preferers. So here we are. So we are the Iron Center Israel. We do meetups. We do Monday reading groups. We read the Ominous Parallels on Monday. We do events. We publish books. So please enjoy this meetup. Feel free also to support us and donate. We have a QR here for donations. And there is a lot of new faces or returning faces here, and I'm really happy to see you all. So let's do a quick round. Everybody tell his name, and you can either say something about hero, or say a hero he thinks about, or somebody who is a hero for him, or a hero he likes from literature. So your name is something about heroes that you're passionate about. And when I think about heroes, for me, the thing that I'm very passionate about is more of an idea, is the contrast between the hero of the perceived hero of sacrifice, as if this hero sacrificed so much, therefore he's a hero, versus the hero that fights for values and fights for things that are important for him. So in order to have a better life.
Cool. My name is Yovav. I didn't think about it, but the first person that comes to mind is Richard Feynman. The thing that I appreciate about him is his clarity of thought and the fact that he's able to be so loyal to the facts of reality and to logic the way he perceives it. That I think he made brilliant advancement for science, and he had a great way of articulating it and promoting his insights. Despite that it's unorthodox, the stuff that he came up with, but it's very compelling, very convincing. So I think that's slightly heroic.
Hi, my name is Nadav. For me, a hero is a person that makes you do something in the best way possible. For me, at least my childhood hero, I don't know who is my hero today, but my childhood hero was Shalas from Maccabi, Shalom Eskibitius, who made me a better player every day.
I'm Moshe, and right now no hero comes to my mind.
I'm Gabby, and the first thing that comes to my mind is kind of physical bravery of combat soldiers, throwing themselves in front of bullets for me, taking great physical and personal risks for other people. I know very much that's not the definition we're going to learn about today. And also what comes to mind is someone who stands against the crowd when they're the only one with a certain idea, no matter what anyone says, just, maybe Ian Rand on the Phil Donahue show in front of the mob comes to mind, something like that.
I'm Isaac. I'm sort of skeptical of the idea of heroes, so I'm open to being persuaded.
Cool.
But if I think of I can't think of a famous hero, but I guess my Aunt Sherry is sort of a hero to me, just seeing her overcome a lot of adversity in her life and maintaining a positive attitude and refusing to surrender to cynicism.
I'm Camellia, and my favorite heroes are from Atlas Shrugged, very inspiring. So anyone who hasn't read it, I recommend.
My name is Noor. I have two heroes. Mendelssohn, the composer, that the Nazi party made him a lot of trouble, and he never stopped to compose. And Moshe Kroy, one of the biggest fans of Ayn Rand. Interesting life and super interesting person.
Okay, my name is Gilad. I think the first name that came up to my head when I think about hero, I think it's Dumbledore, because I think he's a wise person. He doesn't afraid to rebel against politicians in the books, against magic, how it's called, the
My name is Hizkiah, and my hero is a guy from the movie by the name The Founder. I don't remember the name of the, you know that, something Clark.
I forgot the name, but yeah.
But someone that against all odds achieved phenomenal results in certain fields. Recommended to all of you.
My name is Amir, and my hero is Old Wingate, who was a British officer during the British mandate in Eretz Israel. He was never scared to go against the British establishment when he disagreed with them about the situation, and he knew to differentiate between right and wrong. He was never scared to stand for his values.
My name is Zev. It's kind of trivial, but how it works.
Nothing trivial about that.
I mean, in this setting.
Sometimes the simple things are just true. So.
My name is Amit. I like the movie Jaws, and I think it's a great archetypical story of becoming a hero.
My name is David. My personal hero is, or not personal hero, but don't have a personal hero for now. But one person who is a hero for me is Sophie Scholl, who fought against Nazis in the Second World War, but from inside Germany, where she hung. She was part of the resistance group, the White Rose, and like a hero for me is a person who not does something, does one spectacular thing, but a person who always stays to her line, and always stays to her, and confidently stays on her beliefs, no matter what comes in front of her.
Okay, I'm Michal. I would say my hero is also hard work. I just find myself asking, when I'm in a situation where I'm not sure what to do, or I need some advice, I think to myself, what would hard work do? And then I think if it's relevant to me, if it's something that I would do, but I usually refer to him because I value the way he thinks, and I can trust his character to do the right thing, so I can ask him for advice in my head.
So I'm Boaz, and I have too many heroes to choose from for this kind of answer. So it's better to actually introduce you to the first one this way. Do we? Okay, so my first question for you guys is, how does that speak to you? What words would you apply to that? What story might you put to that? Has anybody heard that before? Okay.
Intense and.
Wait, hold on. As a format, let's for now let's do hands, and then we can maybe do a little more crazy Israeli style, which I like. But so, has anybody not heard that before? Okay, cool. All right. If you want to hear it again, we can hear it again, or if you want to just blurt out whatever the first thing you thought after about 2 or 3 seconds. Yes. Okay. And then we'll hear a little bit more.
Test after.
So take maybe half minute, and I'm going to throw in one other question after that half minute. Just sort of, does everybody have their answer already? Okay.
Struggle.
Struggle, yeah.
I feel like it's leading to something. Like I'm waiting for something.
Yeah, I agree with that. The word that comes to mind, anticipation. Gearing up.
Anticipation. Gearing up. Okay.
Also, there's a sense of calm, and it's not chaotic. There's some inner calm.
Interesting.
A bit tragic, actually. A little bit. It feels a bit. It doesn't feel very optimistic. It feels like a bit tragic, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe melancholy. Like tragic is.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strong word. Yeah.
A little bit negative.
Like a suffering.
Yeah. I mean, all of that is true. There is one chord there at the end of right where I stopped where I think it's a tiny bit different. Whoops. One more time. That last chord, and right before it, there's this blast from the horns. And so right there, I feel like it's not suffering, it's defiant. Okay? But all those answers are correct, right? And music is just is, right? There's no right answer. It's supposed to hit you as sound, right? There's no idea. And that's kind of amazing because one of the reasons this composer is my hero is that he was sitting watching the premiere of this piece, and he had been waiting 20 years to hear that. Those first few measures we just heard, that had just been in his head forming for 20 years. And the reason it took him 20 years, does anybody know the reason?
I think he thought he was not good enough, or it wasn't good enough, or something like that.
Yeah, so Brahms was carrying on his shoulders the weight of giants. That's what he said. And there was one giant that he was holding on his back. You can probably guess who it was. It was Beethoven. Beethoven had written 9 symphonies, and the 9th symphony, had been published and performed and was a huge explosion in European history. It was performed in 1829. And that's a long time before this came out. And that was the last symphony that anyone had really taken seriously for a long time. The form of the symphony was basically on its way out. It was almost extinct. And Brahms had been working on a symphony for 20 years, and it wasn't good enough. And he wasn't good enough, and he didn't know if he'd ever be good enough. And that's all that he wanted to do. And because of that, because he wanted to write symphonies and not music that accompanies opera or other shows, or music that tells an explicit story, which is much easier to do. He wanted to write symphonies. He wanted to take this sound and create a structure with it that if you put it in the right way, if you put it in the right form and the right structure, it would knock people out. It would make them cry. It would do something to them that would change their lives. That was called absolute music, right? There is nothing else other than the music, and it makes you feel absolute. And he wanted to do that, and because he wanted to do that, and he wanted to do it as well as Beethoven, he did not do lots of other things that could have made his life much, much, much easier. Materially, socially. He took jobs that were fun, and they were good, they paid enough. He was a choir director. He moved to a town and was a women's choir director, and he wrote them songs. He fell in love with some of them and didn't pursue them. He took this little thing here, and then he took some students, and then he went back to Vienna, and he wrote some popular works. He was building up a name, but all of that was like 15 years after he had been introduced to the public as the next genius. The big music publicist of the age, Robert Schumann, had heralded him the next Beethoven when he was only 21 years old. And he had to live up to that, too. He was called the next Beethoven, but he knew that he wasn't. It was the one time that he let a lie about him go unanswered. And that's another thing that we need to know about heroes, is that they're proud. And part of being proud, pride is my favorite virtue. Part of being proud is that you are committed to the morality as such, that you know that being a good person is an incredibly important thing that will make you happier, and you hold on to your image of yourself and make it better for yourself so that you can face life with a smile and that you can feel great. And Brahms had that. He had that. Yes, he had enough. So he had enough to live his best life. The word for that, what we just heard, is I definitely think is struggle, but I also think it says, this. I think most people's lives, you're 20 years old, this is you at 0. You go like this, you're at 20 years old. A lot of people just go like that, and then like that, and then like that. Then some people go at 25, they're going up, 30, they're going up, and then they go slowly down, okay? And it's not about physical health primarily. What is it about?
The spirit to pursue something.
It's what you expect from life. I mean, in the beginning you are very ambitious, you really want to, you see all the life before you, all the goals that you can achieve. And when you grow up, people become a little more cynical what they can achieve.
Yeah. Okay, so basically we have all these cliches, right? Which is do what your heart says, pursue your dreams, don't let go of your dreams. These are really, really post-1960s things that we used to not hear so much, right? The culture today is a lot more individualistic than it was in 1940, in 1950 when Ayn Rand was writing The Fountainhead. But most of us don't know what those things really, really mean. The thing about, let me repair it to a little bit of my notes. So the thing is, let's say we're talking about, somebody mentioned the conventional idea of heroism. So let me tell you a little story, okay? So say a soldier, an incredibly brave soldier, right? Somebody that saves lives, saves his friends' lives. He comes home, and he feels pretty good. And everybody feels pretty good about him, right? But what he did was definitely heroic. And he goes home and he's engaged, right? He's been with the same girlfriend for years. But he was injured. During his injury, after the heroic act, something about him changed, and he met somebody else. He just liked her a little bit, didn't pursue her. He didn't pursue her because he's engaged. So he comes home, and they're gonna get married. And he doesn't want to get married. He loves her, right? He loves his girlfriend. He feels amazing with her sometimes. They have a strong bond. So it's hard. There's conflicts. What does his courage, what is his willingness to pay the ultimate price for his ideals? Because that's what it is, that the conventional idea of heroism is just the ability to deliver in really difficult times when everything is on the line, and everything usually means something that can almost mean all of your life, all of your dignity, right? But the problem with that is that this does not help him make this decision. What is the heroic act here? Does he get married? Does he not get married? It's been years. They've been waiting for years. He does want her in his life. He doesn't want to get married. He doesn't want to marry her. He kind of likes somebody else, but he thinks it's ridiculous, right? You're 21 years old, you're 22 years old, You think it's a little bit maybe ridiculous for me to decide now to just change everything, and after all this time, what does he do? How long does he wait to make the decision? Right? Do you guys see what I'm getting at?
Not so much, actually.
Yeah. I think the problem is that these are this is a really, really difficult choice. And you have to have a lot of character. You have to know a lot about yourself, and you have to have a lot of virtue. You can't know yourself. You can't know yourself without working really hard, developing strong attachments to the world, thinking about it, reflecting on it, becoming a stronger person in general, and mostly being really, really, really honest about things like this. Really being honest about why you like what you like, and why you're with the people that you're with. And you need to work. Work changes everything. If you meet a 16-year-old person and they're asking you, what should I do with my life? I don't know what to do, blah, 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 blah. I mean, they're actually asking that question. I think the first thing to do is to tell them to get a job. Get a job. Work. Think about the job first, right? See what you can do. But when you start to work, you start to make a lot of decisions about your time. You start to feel good about yourself in ways that you didn't anticipate. You start meeting people that you otherwise wouldn't have met. You learn about yourself. You start to build your life. Even when you're young, you start to build things because of that work. Because a number of different reasons. Does that make sense? Does that sound right?
The story of the girlfriend was supposed to demonstrate that only you can make your own decisions and nobody else can.
It demonstrates that you can't make that kind of decision, a really difficult decision like that, without really living virtuously for a while first. Now, I'm not going to commit to the idea that this person isn't a hero. Okay, because there's a little bit of a paradox. There's a little bit that I don't know for sure about this issue, right? It's a little bit new to me. It's a very interesting topic, and you can help me out. Okay, try to bridge the concepts of heroism that we're talking about. What would you do? Okay, so I mean, do you guys know what you would do in this situation? Do you go through with the marriage? Do we have opinions about this?
I think that most of us, most of the people will just go to the comfort, take the comfort decision and ignore the feeling and go marriage. I mean, they won't confront what they're feeling. And I think that, I don't remember how to put the terms, but in many arts, in many movies, TV series, we see that about couples who are about getting married, and in the day of the wedding, one of them just escaped because they regret of the decision. So
she escapes because
he doesn't want to get married. They understand they don't want to take this decision.
Okay.
It's usually like the guy who runs usually like evades the fact that he doesn't want to get married until the last moment where he can no longer wish that it will not happen somehow.
Okay. Let me change the facts a little bit to make it more clear. He does not want to get married. Okay. He doesn't. The closer it gets, the more he realizes he doesn't want to get married. He probably likes this other girl. He formed an attachment after this injury, but he started to get intrigued, and he's just thinking about her, and it seems kind of silly because he only met her for, I don't know, a few weeks.
Is that specific?
Yes, that's specific.
Does he not want to get married with her or
with his girlfriend? With the girlfriend that he's been waiting.
So it's not in general. It's just with.
It's a very specific situation, but it's not that unusual. Not that unusual.
No, I think he does not want to get married in principle or in that case.
No. He doesn't want to get married to her. He doesn't want to get married to her.
So maybe he should ask himself why, and answer it honestly and rationally.
Okay.
And it takes something. I mean, it's not like he will do it in a second.
Okay, the night before the wedding. The night before the wedding.
Well, it's too late, I don't know.
You think it's too late?
Too late.
No, this is a, please, please.
What I mean is
Can
that
you just restate the question at this point, so we
Yes.
can know what we're answering?
It's the night before the wedding, or it's the day of the wedding,
Yeah,
okay? Does he call it off?
it depends on his, who's he? It
He
really
doesn't want to get married.
It depends on him, it depends on his,
Okay.
his inclination towards avoidance versus confronting discomfort and the unknown, uncertainty.
Well, okay, no, but
Depends on
that's,
who we're talking about.
I'm saying, okay, all right, what would you do? Do you have an answer?
I would call it off.
Okay, good. I think that's heroic, because in that situation, like, there's a lot riding on it. There's so much pressure. There's like there's so many people you're going to hurt, and you may feel like you've made mistakes. You might feel some guilt, but you have to have. Okay, what are you gonna say?
You did say that he loves her, so.
He loves her.
Yeah. In what sense?
I said that he loves her. But he doesn't want to get married to her anymore. Sorry, I didn't make that clear.
Why doesn't he want him to get married?
Because of this other girl.
It's this other girl, and but the love. There's levels of love, right? I mean, he doesn't have what he needed to have anymore to stay with her in that way.
Okay. He doesn't get from the relationship what he.
But you don't discover that one day before the wedding.
Yeah.
So I'm, you know what I mean? So I'm,
Yeah, so
You discover. So a lot of people repress feelings, and then they don't. You know, it's coming up, and they don't want to go there.
and they can't.
And then it's like now only at the last moment, because now it's unavoidable, right? And something in them rises, and like it's they're. Some people will run in that situation. They'll just run. It happens.
I think it will be redeeming in a sense, but not necessarily heroic, because being a hero is not just in the instant and like you make this one decision. Like a man with like who is being a hero would not have got into such a situation.
What makes this heroic? Like, why do you think this?
Okay, that's a really good question. Let me answer that with a question. Okay. So this is something you might want to think about for the next half hour, or you might have an answer really soon. But I have a couple of riddles. Okay. The first riddle is, it's not that much of a riddle, but like think about the best possible life that you could have. I mean, think about really like what is the best possible life that anybody could have or that you could have. And then choose two words that are contrasting, that are contraries, not opposites, but two different words that mean different things, that describe that life. That's the first riddle. The second riddle is, what is at the same time the most exciting thing? The most intense thing, the most intense thing, and at the very same time, the most relaxing thing.
We're asking several questions.
Yes, I'll repeat them. The first one is, think about the best possible life that you could have. Choose two words that are contraries, they're not opposites, but mean different things, could be quite different from each other, and that you would use to describe that life. I'll repeat the second question.
Two words that are
They mean quite different things. They're not opposites. Like it's compatible. You can have both.
Essentially different.
Yes. Okay.
Essentially different or contrary?
No, he's right.
They're not related.
Essentially different.
Like
not
I could say.
necessarily contrary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody need to hear the second one?
Yep.
The second one is, what is at the same time the most intense emotional experience and the most relaxing?
Can I say something about your first situation with a guy? I think it's a bit, maybe something that makes it maybe less interesting, make this question less interesting is the fact that it's like asking someone, suppose that you're, you just, you're holding a gun or you just shot 10 people and now what you do now. So it's kind of irrelevant to the fact that you took that decision before. So he what I mean is that he got to one day before the marriage which is kind of, he should have been thinking about this rationally and for a long time before that, to know himself, because otherwise it looks like...
There's no way that he's a hero in the situation. I'm not saying how does he become a hero now. He can't become a hero yet, based on the situation. I think you're right. I think a true hero, it's not the same as heroic acts. It's not the same as the things that you do, right, that resemble the things that you can use to become heroic. Because the fact is, all of us collect our virtues in gradual steps, in practice. And all of us have to reflect and be honest with ourselves and realize mistakes and realize when we've not been using our mind really at all for something. And it just, and it's not just that, it's you actually do have to get your idea of heroes from somewhere. I think a lot of people, I mean, I in particular, I didn't have real life heroes. So part of my theme about myself is that I get so much out of learning about, and I didn't start out this way. I read a lot of history, but for me, the pleasure of reading history became the pleasure of coming into contact with real giants. Real giants. And understanding their qualities, understanding what made them so able to do what they did. There's a man that everybody in Israel seems to know his name, Raoul Wallenberg. Everybody knows his name, okay? Why do we know his name? Because he saved lots of lives, lots of Jews. Also, something really tragic happened to him. Really, he just fell off the face of the earth. That raises his profile. Very good to have if you're interested in death. The fact is, his life, the thing that made him, his choices, his decisions in life, before all of that happened in Budapest, are so interesting, and they're heroic. I mean, he made himself into a hero. He was an adventurer. He took risks. He learned like crazy. He worked like crazy. He loved his life. He built this huge, magnanimous soul from his experiences, and that is what gave him the strength to do what he did. Just the raw intelligence is impressive, but he did much more than that. He was a politician. He was an actor, right? He had to be a sophisticated mischief maker, and he had to threaten people. He had to threaten Nazis. He had to intimidate Nazis to do what he did. Now that's an extraordinary person who built his life. He built his character, and we don't know anything about that. We don't know anything about that. Who here knew his name and knows the things that led up to what I'm talking about, the things that, these characteristics I'm describing?
On some level.
On some level.
Yeah, not an expert. I do notice when I walk abroad and I see a street.
Yeah, we see his name.
There he is again.
We see his name. Yeah. There was a statue of him in Budapest, and the communists didn't like it. I think that now it's still there somewhere, but.
In Stockholm, recently I saw his name again.
Yeah.
But I think what makes him a real hero is maybe is less of his abilities, but more the dedication and the willingness to stand for something and to take risks and to say, okay, I want to live, but not at all costs. I mean, there's something that I don't want to give up. Like ideals.
How do we become that person? How do you get there?
First of all, maybe take a look at yourself, introspect, and find the answer to the question: what you want to pursue, what you want from life.
There was a psychologist.
Who you want to be.
There was a psychologist who did a study of all of the people that you could find in Central Europe and in Western Europe during the Holocaust who rescued Jews. And she categorized them, and she made all these observations. That was 20 years of her life that she put into this book. And the thing that she concluded, that she didn't know in advance, she had to learn this about them, is that for the most part, these people had a parent, or they had somebody in their life when they grew up, who was incredibly idealistic, who showed them love, and who was, the idealism is specifically in the form of you have an unbreakable will to do what is right. You just, whatever you know to do is right, you do it. And they got that. They got this, it's sort of like Harry Potter and his mom. What is this power that J.K. Rowling is kind of hinting at and describing in all sorts of woozy ways? It is this unbelievable love that a person shows through their virtue, through their untrammeled virtue. And this is the problem with Brahms, by the way. Brahms is an incredible hero of mine. I'm going to describe why I think he's a hero. Can we say again why I think Brahms is a hero? He worked incredibly hard. That's the first thing. He worked incredibly hard to be a master. And he couldn't stand not being as good as he thought he needed to be. And because he worked so hard, because he worked that hard and he had that goal, he knew more than everybody else. It's not big, we talk about rationality. Reason is there for a purpose. Like we need to have goals before we actually get really good at using our mind. Even when you're using your mind, you have to use it to do something, right? So you have to use your will. You have to have an idea of what you're trying to get at. And when you're someone who knows what you have to get at, and you work insanely hard at it, you solve so many problems, many more than you otherwise would have, and you just learn a lot more. And Brahms learned more than anybody else had ever learned, by far, about the history of music. He became Dr. Brahms. He became one of the first musicologists, and he didn't get it as a degree, he was just awarded it because he knew more than everybody else. He knew some piece from the Renaissance, and he took it out, and he used it in his music. It all went into him. All these things were true, and he had incredible satisfaction. This is the thing that I love the most. I love that moment of victory. Okay, we heard this music it sounds like a struggle, and I said that there is something else there. There's defiance. He didn't think that we needed to hear that message specifically, but that was there when he was sitting watching his own music. Has anybody ever had a eureka moment? Like a moment where you realized something you were thinking about and you finally solved it, and oh my gosh, all of a sudden I got it? Yeah? Okay, multiply that by something like 50, maybe 100. We've been working on something for 20 years, and now it's really, really, really good, and now it's premiering, and you hear it. I don't know. Seriously, I think life is a bunch of discrete, amazing experiences that you build and then you're satisfied with. And that allows you to do the next thing that Brahms did not get to, which is really, really fall insanely in love with someone. Okay? This is the thing that Brahms could not have. Could not have it. Why couldn't he have it? Okay, there's a story here with a woman that he knew who was the wife of a composer friend of his. Okay? The story is basically that there is one basic problem, is if you cannot be honest with the people you really, really, really care about the deepest things. Right? We talk about honesty. Honesty is, first of all, a matter for yourself, that you don't fake. I mean, if you don't fake for yourself that something you know isn't true, you kind of change it in your mind, you make it a little bit askew, you don't fabricate stuff for yourself. That's the first thing, is you really look and you try to understand what is true. But it's also what you say to people, and there's something about communication that is really, really fundamental to who you become. If you cannot share who you really are, you cannot share the truth about yourself with people you are close to, what happens? What is the result?
Can you say the question?
If you cannot be really deeply, deeply honest about who you are, about the most fundamental things with the people that you are closest with, or at least with one person that you're closest with, what happens?
The connection between you is fake.
Sorry, what?
The connection between you is fake. They
Fake.
can't actually care about you because you don't know you.
Okay, that's too, I think.
If you are not honest with them, they don't know who you are actually, who's the real you. They can think, maybe they think they care about you, but they don't know you, so they can't actually care about you.
They love their stuff.
They can care about the
It's true.
fictional character
It's true,
inside their head.
but care is there, and care.
It's not for you. And when
Wait.
the fictional character hits reality, something will break.
Yeah, I think the person that does not have the opportunity to share who it truly is with someone, it can say things about the love or relationship that you said, but it also can reflect something about the person itself, about his relationship with himself. Why he's not capable of bringing himself into the table? Maybe he's not feeling okay with every part of himself, or maybe he thinks that
He doesn't. I mean, obviously, I think it's easy to conclude that if you can't share that with somebody else, then something is missing from your own sense of comfort with yourself. But you said something very extreme. You said that the person doesn't know you at all. I think
I didn't mean at all, but they don't know
fundamentally. I think that it depends on how critical the information is to that person's decision, but they do know a lot about you, enough to care about you, to know you, but there is something deep that is not there, that is fake. That it's not fake. It's just, in some sense, I mean, I think, would you agree, would you think it's fake?
Well, let's put it this way, out of context, we can understand it. Usually when somebody's hiding something, it is something that is essential to the judgment. It's something that is very deep, very important, I guess. Like, I don't think somebody, like, when people hide things from judgment, like, it's not about an artificial thing that doesn't matter. It's about things that matter. And the judgment would be different if that thing would have been known.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I connect with what you said. It's like the person who loves you loves a facade, a thing that you are not. So there is, like, you are, and it's what Ron said about, like, lying. Like, you are in struggle with the facts of reality, so the other partner would not find them out, so he'd know who you are and will judge you in a different way that you don't want.
Okay, I'm gonna make this really super personal, okay? At some point I had to say no to having a relationship with my own father. I had to do this because I really had to examine his actions in my life, and I came to a conclusion that he was bad enough for me that I had to do that. Now, my father told me very, very late in our relationship, he told me something really shocking about some terrible thing that he had done. Right? And now I knew something about him that I didn't know, and it was fundamental. It didn't mean that what I knew about him before wasn't essential, that I couldn't understand him before in some fundamental way, that I couldn't connect with him. How did that hurt our relationship? That the entire time something really terrible, right, was he kept to himself. The primary thing is, first of all, mostly we don't know why we're uncomfortable with some things. We don't let ourselves examine them that much. A lot of people are not that introspective. So they carry guilt or shame or anxiety about something that they might share for no really particularly good reason. They haven't really examined it, okay? We've all met people that aren't really good at communicating, and there's practice that comes with communication. You get good at it, you learn something about yourself from it. I don't think that if you don't reveal some deep thing to your loved one, or Brahms say, right? I don't think that the relationship is fake or insincere, or that it's not in some way even good. I think Brahms doesn't learn about himself. I think that telling people, the people that love you the most, all of those things, or at least most of them, okay? I think that's part of learning about yourself. I think it's part of objectivity about yourself. And I'm not going to go further into the mechanics of that because I'm not a psychologist. It's just something I know from some reading and some experience.
Can you share the story about Brahms?
Yes. Brahms was, at some level, deeply ashamed of his sexuality, and it's obvious that that was true. He grew up playing in taverns in Hamburg. He played for money. His parents didn't have that much money. They had some, but he was extremely talented. He was the most talented musician, really, of his age, and he played every night, all night for a while when he was a teenager. Crazy job to have. And it was like a bordello, and so the women that he knew at that age were I mean, we're talking about sex work, right? it's the word for it these days. And he probably had some experiences. He talked a little bit, he hinted a little bit about that to a couple of different men who he finally was able to tell at a late age. So for him, sexuality was this very traditionally European, Western European, puritanical, bifurcated thing, right? There is the woman that you admire, and there is the woman that you want to have sex with. And he was very simple that way, ultimately. And he never had a close relationship with a woman. He had a deep friendship with Clara Schumann, but it wasn't, they didn't tell each other everything. They were never romantically entangled. And every woman that he could possibly have been with, he eventually did something to distance himself from her because he couldn't stand the intimacy, couldn't do it. So he didn't let himself, he didn't care enough about that part of life to enjoy something else, which is what I was hinting at with the little riddles, okay? So do we have answers yet about the riddles? Okay.
First is two words.
Two words that are contrary that you would attach to the best possible life. And then the other one, what is at the same time the most intense feeling and the most relaxing feeling?
Well, maybe for the second one, at least, maybe if I may, it sounds like some satisfaction out of real happiness or something that is both very satisfying. So you said intense and relaxing.
Mm.
I mean, that's the only thing that comes to mind to me.
The most intense emotional experience is?
Yeah, when you achieve something.
What kind of love? Picture the person that you love the most. Picture that they're really in some trouble. What does that feel like? Picture what it feels like with when you see them after and they're safe. What does that feel like? I think it's the most intense feeling that we can have. What's the most relaxing?
I would say confidence.
The next morning is the most relaxing. Being with the person like that and trusting them completely and doing lots of things with them and then sharing a life with them and experiencing just, I mean, I actually have music for this. So you guys don't mind me being like this in front of you? That's funny.
I'm not sure I understood the question properly because I answered the second question with music. I think even the same piece can make me feel very less erotic. How do I say that?
Storm.
Less erotic. But also the same piece at a different time can really calm me
Shake
down.
you up.
So yeah. So that's what I.
Yeah, I think music can be like that. Yeah. Well, do you have a specific piece in mind?
The same piece can make you both.
At different times.
I mean, the same passage.
The same passage. That's a good question.
No, I think the same piece.
Okay.
I think
like
different parts of the same.
Yeah.
You have it's after a long day and it's like oh my god, so much happened, there's so much, and then you go and you listen to music, but you don't listen to like relaxing music, you listen to like really intense music, and it's sort of like
Makes you relaxed, really?
it's like it's both and both. It's sort of like it's unwinding and it's like
So My answer to the first question of the two words I attached to the best life is glory and, gosh, my brain just went blank. It's like 2 hours of sleep will do. No, serenity, sorry, serenity, okay? Glory and serenity, okay? Serenity is also, serenity is what you feel when, what does the word serenity mean?
I chose that too, not in this, but I think I chose peace, like when your values are aligned with your actions and then you have like this inner integration and it's peaceful. I think that maybe that's what you meant.
Okay, do you have a picture? Do you have a picture for that? What does that look like? What does it look like when you have all of your experience, all of your values? It feels amazing, and then you also feel this complete peace. What do you have a picture that goes with that?
No.
Okay, so the fountainhead, I think the beginning of the fountainhead is serenity, and I think that the peak of serenity is the glory, and both glory and serenity at the end. But that's just one thing that I thought of even this morning, but for me, I know that from my life. There's moments in my life where I hold on to those things. And I also asked the question, who is the most serene person? And we haven't defined serenity. Do you want to define serenity?
I just thought glory seems to me like a little bit weird, because to me glory seems like outside, like sort of what my reputation, like I have a very good reputation.
Gloria. No, I'm not talking about Gloria. I'm talking about talking about the high. Yeah, I don't mean the achievement. I'm talking about the moments of triumph. I'm talking about winning. You have the Brahms moments. Okay, I had a Brahms moment the other day. Okay, I still teach some piano students in California. Okay, via WhatsApp that I've had for years, and one of them was in a piano competition. He's 14 years old, and he's been training it for a few months. And his parents and he, they had all the work, they signed up and registered and stuff, and he chose the piece. And this is relevant because I felt really bad. He prepared the wrong movement of a piano sonata. This is a Haydn sonata in E minor, which he plays brilliantly, and he chose the wrong movement. And he shows up at the competition, and they find out that it's wrong. And his mom, he's embarrassed, he stays in the car. His mom asks if he could still play. And they say, you know what, you can still compete, you can't win first prize. Okay?
I don't understand, because he said he was going to play some other...
He prepared the wrong piece, right? The piece was supposed to be the third movement of this sonata, and everybody else, there were 22 people playing. Okay? So he's competing against 22 people, and now they're saying, you can compete, but you can't win first prize. That's pretty nice. And he barely decides to do it. He's so embarrassed. He goes ahead and he does it. And I have the video, which I got that morning. I looked at it at 5:30 in the morning. And he sits down and he's quite nervous. He starts playing and he plays it really fast, a lot faster than he played it with me, which I know what that's like. I know what it means to be that nervous and your heart beats so fast, you actually distort your time perception. He played it so fast, but he played it so brilliantly, so cleanly, with so much musicality. It was like little bursts of professional piano playing. And he got third prize. And I saw that, and I'm just like, this is great playing. And I just know the judges saw that, and were like, okay, well, I can't play that well. I can't play as well as he plays. So we have to give him a prize.
Fourth place must have been mad.
And I'm really happy to brag about this, right? Because that's a moment of glory, right? I know what that feels like for him. He celebrated, and then I talked to his mom 2 days later, and she told me he went home and he practiced. He took 2 new pieces and he played them. Okay? That I wouldn't have done, right? I would have let myself just eat pizza and watch TV and go to sleep. Okay. So I think those moments, and I think that what it means for you when you reflect on it about yourself, and I think that lets you feel equal to taking big risks in relationships. I think that relationships are really central to our life experience. I think romantic relationships are defining for our ability to have really true happiness. And I don't think you can have that unless you can be the best you can feel about yourself that you've done your best with yourself. I don't. I think it's like a law of nature. I think Ayn Rand believes that. I'm not sure that it's true. That is what her ethical theory implies. That at least if you are really virtuous, it doesn't mean that you will have the romantic relationship that you want, but it means you'll be capable of it. Brahms wasn't capable of it. He couldn't be fully truthful about really, really important things. So he missed out. He missed out. Yeah.
I think, I agree with everything you said, but I think there's another aspect of capability to have the capacity to be in a relationship, and that's the belief to be met in a relationship, to be both understood and acknowledged for your virtues, for your value, for your knowledge, or for your assessment of reality. So
seen for who you are.
But check it.
The belief that you will be seen for who you are.
The belief that you're seen accurately enough. And hold on. And what I mean by that is not only that you assess the other person's perspective to be accurate enough, that you agree with their point of view. That way you can reciprocate.
You think that we need to agree, that a couple has to agree on their viewpoints on most things, or a few things? Or
You don't have to agree, but you have to be understanding.
Okay, you have to understand the other. How do you understand another person?
How do you understand?
I mean, in relationships in general, but how does it happen?
I'm going to have to think about that.
Okay, does anybody want to answer that?
How do you understand?
How do you get good at understanding? Because this is what it's about. It's how do you perceive the other person for what they're saying, like actually understand their point of view actually well, and they have them understand you really well.
I can mention a couple of components that I think go into it. There's an aspect of time. So over time, you would converse with a person, so you would hear them out, and you would see them act upon their convictions.
Yeah.
So they would have to demonstrate that what they say and what they do matches up. You read their body language, you look at the eye contact, and you evaluate, like, is this person well integrated, and do I understand them?
You have fights. Like, you have fights.
In other words, yeah, you're fine.
You have fights, but the point is that you have disagreements mostly. A lot of disagreements. The thing is, you have a lot of wonderful things you agree on, and the way that you learn about them is you study that. You learn about anything, you study them over time, but when you have disagreements, then you can really try to understand what they're saying. Because you're not just going to, unless you're very defensive and you don't really want to be fully honest, you can give yourself an excuse that she said something that you didn't like and whatever it is, but the first thing you have to do is talk about it afterwards and over time, like you said. I sound like a relationship counselor. This is not really.
No, it's actually
willingness and commitment.
Okay.
I think rationality. I mean, if you're rational enough, you won't be offended so much as to give up on understanding it, right? So
I think the time element is the critical here. It's not just trying to understand. Being rational means over time, seeing how the reactions really register. Like, I'm not being very clear about this. A lot of people have you don't really interpret their emotions accurately. A lot of people seem to be angry at a moment when you don't think that they're angry at a moment. And this happens in relationships, and you don't actually know what that person is going through, and that creates tension. So it's talking, and the talking happens in disagreements. There's lots of awkward things, lots of little fights, but if you talk about it, then that person can reflect on what happened, see that you're open to them being a good person. I think it's that kind of applied rationality. Yeah. But it's practice. Yeah.
I think if you are, it sounds like a cliche, but if you are respecting, have a respect for this unagreement in yourself, like the other side in yourself, you can respect it in the other side, and even if you are not agree with that, you can be a good person, and you can have a value for the person, for the other person that think the other thoughts.
What do you mean by respecting?
Respecting, it's if you have decisions, it's right, because if I let's say if I decide to buy some clothes and not some shirt and not the other one, if the other one is not for me, it's it's just about the taste. So every opinion for me, it's about the taste of life. So if you respect all the tasters, but you have your choice, so this is what you need to think about the other person in front of you. That you are respected. Maybe it's not for you for decision, and you both of you need to decide the right decision for you too. But you not need to have disrespect for that.
Can I tell a hero story from history?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
So I've recently listened on an audiobook to a biography of Galileo, and it really moved me. And it's this guy, he lived in he was born in the 16th century in Italy. In the Counter-Reformation, when the Catholic Church really doubled down after its authority was kind of shaken by the Protestants. And so he begins his life with his father wants him to be a doctor, because of course a doctor like today, right? It's well earning, it's respected, but he isn't interested in being a doctor, and he wants to be a mathematician. So he studies math, but the thing is, he has to get almost everything from scratch, and this is what is amazing about these Renaissance men. So it's like there weren't like a department of physics or astrophysics or something like that. There wasn't astronomy. Astronomy was part of math. It was like a branch of math, and it was like basically using the Ptolemaic system to predict stuff, and also aiding astrologists and sort of and people who were doing what we call physics today were philosophers. They were sort of like thinking, how do we apply Aristotle to what we see? And he had to invent everything. He had to invent his methodology. So like, we actually can't infer stuff from the Bible or from Aristotle to understand the world. No, we have to look at it. And he had to invent his instrument, right? He heard of this Dutch person who invented this combination of lenses to see stuff from afar. He says, yeah, this guy is like, he was wasting his time trying to sell it for a big sum to military roles. I'm going to invent something like 100 times stronger and look at the skies. And so he had to invent everything from scratch. Even how scientific stuff is written, and then he made a very convincing argument based on his observation why the Earth moves around the sun.
But where's the heroism? Can you focus on the heroism?
And he did that. So he defied his father, he defied his professor, he defied everyone's expectation and everyone's way of doing things, and people, the very toxic sort of attacks on him, and he went back and he criticized these people back, even though these people held power. They were Jesuit priests, and this is why people then whispered to the ear of the Pope, this guy, and then he actually was brought to sentence. But even when he was in a house arrest, he still pursued his research, and his most important work was written a couple of years before he died. It was after he wrote the one about the heliocentric model. He did his laws of motion, which are arguably more important, and that he did after he was humiliated by the church in house arrest. It is like he bared so much. And in the biography, the biographer had some remark like, in this letter, like Galileo presents himself as a saint. And this was supposed to be like I don't know, like tongue-in-cheek remark by the biographer, but I think no. If anyone is a saint, Galileo is a saint, because he made so much and produced so much value and was so productive. Then even though the whole world was against it, and he persevered and he kept going on, and I really cried at when there was a scene where he was facing the trial, and it was very moving, and I really value his story and his life.
I have a question. This is a fill in the blank. Heroes don't blank, or heroes don't blank blank. Fill in the blanks.
Cop out.
Okay, heroes don't cop out. Does anybody know? Everybody know what that is?
Checking out.
Checking out.
Avoid?
Heroes don't avoid.
Give in.
Give up.
Okay, given what? Heroes don't, whatever.
It's like the story that Adele said, it's like really characteristic of heroism, like you
Okay.
stick out and you're
Yeah,
devoted,
you have
devoted to the
principles.
thing.
Yeah, you're devoted to something. You don't let it go. Ayn Rand said something repeatedly. She says, "Don't let go of the best within you."
Yeah.
The best within you. What does she mean by the best within you? She doesn't just mean your honesty. She doesn't just mean your purpose. What does she mean?
Pursuing value?
Okay, I think that's right, but it's a little too abstract. I'm going to fill in the blank for you in a second. Heroes don't blank blank. And unless somebody wants to give me more, heroes don't.
Heroes don't need a reason.
Okay.
Stand down.
Heroes don't. I'm going to say heroes don't stop. And then what's the next word? No correct answer is. No?
Stop short.
Crying?
They-
Okay.
They don't back down.
Okay. Heroes don't stop
Fighting?
growing. Growing. If you guys know who Goethe was, we know something about the early Romantics, the people that are the sort of the genesis of what became the Romantic movement. The Romantics, Goethe is a poet and writer, and he was also a little bit an administrator, playwright. His life was an incredible life. I think that one of the questions I had here, if we get time to it, was when was the first time that...
We have 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
Okay. When was the first time in history where you could see real heroes in your conception, or even in Ayn Rand's conception, actually existing, actually living good lives? Goethe was living in the middle of the 18th century and towards the end of the 18th century. And his conception of life was that you have to develop a lot of knowledge of the natural world and of yourself, and so that you can have amazing projects, that you can have amazing experiences. And he would not surrender. He would not surrender his career, which was being a writer, even if it was hard to do. He never surrendered it. He had another career that was really important to him, and it was really hard to go back to being a writer. But he kept doing it. He kept getting better at it. But most of all, he had a meaningful romantic relationship with the person that he chose. That was a difficult thing to do, because she was beneath his class. And that was something that people had to decide at the time, to decide somebody who they want to be with who is not the appropriate person for them to be with, and they can still make that free decision. And he didn't sacrifice anything that was important to him. The most important things that are important to achieve for your experience of life, it's a very personal thing. And I think people oftentimes in many, many ways, this is what we sacrifice. When we talk about self-sacrifice being evil, sacrifice being bad, it's I think in relationship to these things. When you're 19 to 20 years old, to go back to that, I was talking about how people kind of, their trajectory of their lives. Brahms' trajectory, he wants to be this, right? He wants to keep growing. He wants to keep being more amazing. At 19 and 20, I remember when I was 19, I had my first really peak experience. The experience of being in the right place, being the right person at the right place at the right time, and feeling like infinite. It's a feeling of infinite connection with the world. It sounds mystical. I don't have better words for that than that. And I lost that. It's hard to keep those things. It's really hard to say, you don't always know what you want. It takes a lot of time. I got it back, right? And I got a little bit more of it back. But I read a phrase of Ayn Rand's recently, and I forgot exactly what the phrase was, but it was familiar. She was talking about how people, when they get older, they lose the idealism of their youth, and she means the fire, that fire. And she also says at the end of the Romantic Manifesto, which is a book that I really recommend. It's an amazing book, the Romantic Manifesto. She says, don't let your fire go out. The fire is the things that you know at certain moments in your life are the most important thing for you. It could be for a brief moment. Usually it's more than that. But you're like, I want to feel this. I want to really earn, maybe. I want to be good enough to have this. And I think that opens up, I think not sacrificing that by working really, really hard for it, I think opens you up. I have another question. Who that you've met in your life lives the easiest life that you know? Can mean different things, obviously, easy, but I want to see what you guys think.
My cats.
Your cats?
Cats.
Okay.
I have someone in mind.
Yeah?
A friend of mine, I have someone in mind.
What makes it easy?
I think she's a very simple person. Doesn't mean she's not smart, but I think I think sometimes I tend to, it's hard for me to explain in English, but I tend to sometimes take things like way too seriously maybe, and then kind of get,
overcomplicate?
Yeah, and also things tend to reach a point where they make how do I say that?
Burden.
That they burden me. Is that the word? I'm not sure. And I find that she really inspires me in that. She wants to do something. She says, okay, I'm gonna do it. I want to learn something. Okay, I'll open the computer and I'll learn it. And something is she has runs into a technical problem in a computer. It's like, oh, so I went and I saw a video of how to solve it, and I'm like, so I think it's really inspiring, and I think you have an easier life when you, with that kind of simplicity, where you just, it's a nice kind of simplicity.
Do you know anybody that does something very challenging and has really strong demands on themselves that also has an easy life?
I don't think that there is something like that to live easy life and just to live.
I don't mean that everything is always comfortable. That's not.
No, yes, but it sounds like the easy life. The easiest way to live your life, I think, is if you just don't comfort with. If you are like a religious person who just follows about religious and nose and do what the rabbi says and don't think so much.
Do you think it's easy?
Yes, I think because you don't need to comfort with nothing. You have guidance to your life. It's not good, but it's something. It's very easy. Or if you live, take another example. If you person will work in a government office, I mean, if you go, maybe you don't earn enough and it doesn't challenge enough to work there, and it's very boring. But you have a work that you have very safe work. You have very you don't need to don't need to really struggle. Yes, to struggle to long today, long routine.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it sounds a comfortable life. You don't,
It's, I think that it's complicated. I think that's complicated, more complicated than you're describing. I think that mostly that sort of life, there's lots of little inner conflicts that a person doesn't let themselves resolve. Lots of little things that they want that are not letting themselves have. I think lots of little resentments build up because of that. I think it's actually quite difficult, but there are good moments in a life like that. I have a different sort of argument about it, which is if you simply do what you know is right to do, and you do it as often as you can, and you start doing a little bit more, I really mean about kind of everything. It's not possible to do everything the right way at all moments. I'm not talking about that kind of perfectionism.
You mean not
I'm talking about your.
You mean not making choices?
No, I'm saying when you're making choices, you're thinking as much as you can about the right thing. So whatever you realize is the right judgment to make, you apply it. You don't say, okay, maybe this time doesn't matter, whatever it is. I think if you make that a policy over time, there is a kind of purity to your experience of life that when I encountered it and I realized what it was about, I got something. I mean, I talk about me a little bit here, but it's I think this is about meeting your personal heroes, right? I met somebody who became a personal hero when I realized how good she is, right? It's just, you don't meet incredible people, and I don't mean, I don't mean just like incredible abilities. I mean overall in their life. And it does something to you, all right? And so that gives me some knowledge. I think it's part of trying to know actual heroes. I didn't get that from literature. I don't know what your experience is with this.
Sam says that don't get to know your heroes. It's going to be dangerous. You can discover that they are not so heroes.
Yeah, I think it's good to know that. I think you learn about yourself that way. I think that's a cliche. It's not. I think, yeah, there's the heroes. What does it really mean? It means heroes tend to be flawed. There are people that have heroic qualities, and we know that they're assholes, right? We know they can be assholes.
Sometimes we can perceive someone as a hero, but it's actually a crystallization or idealization.
Yeah, you've idealized them, and they have something really great about them, but they're also, they have some not great things.
But you shouldn't be afraid of finding out the truth.
Sorry?
You should not be afraid of finding out the truth,
Unless it's the
even
day
if
of your
it's not
marriage.
in your liking.
Yeah.
Unless what?
Unless it's the day of your marriage, then you might want to ignore the flaws
Nice.
and go with the flow.
Nice
Just find out later.
I find that deal with it later in the morning.
Find out that people when people that write biographies, I found out that you can sometimes sense that the people who write the biographies are sometimes annoyed with the sort of style of people who are they write about great people in history, and they're sort of annoyed with the style of someone who's very self-confident and assertive and and sort of grand and bigger than life, and sometimes annoys the biographer, and you get the sense of that a little, or they get annoyed with the style of how people wrote letters in 18th century, and it's grandiose. But I know there's they made an interview with a person who made a biography of Ayn Rand, but it was a Jewish biography. It's Ayn Rand as a Jew or something. this person, the interviewer asked the biographer Alexander Popov. He asked her, and then do you find Rand sympathetic? And it's like no, great people are always unsympathetic to me. I don't sympathize with them, and sort of. But I really don't. I don't feel like that because I tend to, even in real life, I tend to like people who other people think are eccentric or too much or too grandiose. So I think it's like it depends on your attitude. I say meet your heroes, but maybe change your attitudes, because I think the problem might not be with the heroes that they are flawed. It's the problem with that people don't really like heroes, and they're intimidated by the heroes. They are they feel small in relation. I think it's like maybe you should change your attitude, and not the hero should change.
There are heroes, or there are people that are like heroes that you meet, and they're so busy. Their life is so busy that they become really impatient. So you try to talk to them, and actually it's unpleasant because they're constantly prioritizing who they're talking to, and they take out their annoyance on people. And I think that kind of feels that way sometimes. I have a story about a person, about a hero, personal hero of mine, so there's this kid in Egypt, grows up in Cairo, and he grows up to this middle-class family. He has a pretty average childhood, aside from the fact that he can't not say the truth. Like he can't shut up. Like when he thinks something is right, he keeps, like, his dad beats him up, and he tells his dad that he argues with his dad, which makes it worse, but it doesn't matter. Like he tells him, you're wrong. And then around the age of 12 or 13, 9/11 happens, and all of Egypt wakes up. The Islamism there, the Islamist movements there become much more kind of popular, and he decides that he is going to be the number one fighter of Jews on the planet. He's going to do it intellectually. He's going to figure out how to defeat the Jews. That's his mission.
Defeat the Jews intellectually.
Defeat the Jews in history, in the world. He wants to defeat the Jews. He wants to be the one to do it.
But
Hitler.
No.
Force or?
Well, eventually, right? But he wants to be the person to figure out how to do it. Okay, not necessarily be the general on the field of battle, right? He wants to figure it out. And so he goes on the internet and he teaches himself Hebrew. And and he starts learning, and one little thing after another, and a few years later, he's teaching himself German. Okay, and then he's reading 19th century German philosophy. He's trying to figure out how the Germans fucked it up so badly. Sorry for swearing. And he takes him a while, but he figures out that he likes the Jews. Right? The whole time, and he becomes fluent in these languages. He becomes a fluent Hebrew speaker. He becomes a fluent German speaker. He's reading philosophy. He's a teenager. He searches out the biggest Jew expert that he can find. Okay, the biggest Egyptian academic expert on the Jews that he can find, because he wants to know, like, the answer to, like, he doesn't understand how, like, how he arrived at this point. And he thinks this guy knows a lot more, and he can finally convince him that he's wrong. And the guy is he's a complete fraud. And he sees that he's a fraud, that he doesn't understand what he's talking about. And so he has to conclude that the Jews are actually okay. He likes the Jews. And at 17 and 18, he decides he wants to meet one. He wants to meet a Jew for the first time in his life. So he goes to the Israeli embassy. They have a cultural center, right? The Israeli diplomats are amazing, right? There are cultural attachés. There are people who are sent to Paris, and they talk about Israeli art. This is what a diplomat does in Paris. And so he's talking to one of these people, and she's talking to this Egyptian teenager, and they're having a conversation in Hebrew, and she can't believe it. He walks out of there, and he's very happy with himself. And the next thing, what happens? What's the next thing that happens to him?
Get a visa to Israel, come visit, and be a volunteer on the kibbutz or something.
That's not what happens. Sorry, that's, yeah.
Okay, what actually happened?
We're talking about Egypt, okay?
The Jew went after him?
Yes.
He was on the surveillance.
He's 18 years old, and he is in a detention cell, and he is beat every day. Every day. Beat, tortured, every single day, for months. For months. And somebody, some state that shall not be named, learns of this, that they made some sort of they had some sort of thing, they eventually found out, and they arranged for him to be tossed out. His family disowned him, right? He loses his parents, he loses his brothers, he loses his sister, he loses his entire extended family. He moves to the United States, he goes to Georgetown. He finds out that the professors there know a lot less about the Middle East and about Islam and about history and about philosophy than he does. He teaches Hebrew in Monterey, okay, in California. There is a school for diplomats and for soldiers, a language school. So this Egyptian kid, he's 22 years old, is teaching Hebrew to American soldiers in Monterey for a living.
What's his name?
His name is Hussein Abu Bakr. When I read him, when I read his writing, when I read his book, he wrote a memoir. I'm reading, I think, the smartest person, the smartest intellectual on earth. He's in his 30s. I think there's a lot that he says that I disagree with. But first of all, the clarity of a lot of his prose is unbelievable. And the depth of his knowledge. He read Goethe in German when he was a teenager. And he was inspired by Goethe. Like, the thing is, what gets a kid like that to have that kind of courage? Because there's nobody else around him that would have tolerated him liking the Jews. He went out of his way to hate the Jews more than everybody else. That was what he was doing at 12 and 13, becoming, the next Zarqawi, becoming the next genius who was going to found a terrorist organization. That was his life. That was his mission. So, what gives him the sort of courage to do that? He hasn't said it yet, but
his commitment to the truth.
Yes.
Let's set up a call with him and let's ask him directly. Can you
Yeah, well, this is. I think he might be interested.
No,
we're out of time.
No, not today, but
This is him, by the way.
he's the guy.
Which one? In the middle.
Worldview of modern Arabs, and revolution, not Islam, is the main organizing principle. Before delving deeper into this, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself? What interested young Hussein Abu Bakr Mansour, who was captivated by this prehistory at the very moment the end of history was declared? What is your Bildungsroman like?
Well, first of all, it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me on. Well, these questions really never vanished in the Middle East. As a matter of fact, in Arab societies, you feel them in their most immediate weight and pressure. So, for example, I do remember the first time I ever heard of Fukuyama's The End of History, for instance. It was actually from Arab intellectuals who were they're writing it as this fictitious little work that talks about the end of history. Well, we're still in the middle of it, and I have to say they turned out to be right. But the idea that something is terribly wrong or went wrong in modern Arab societies is really the central question, has been for nearly a century in Arab societies themselves. As a matter of fact, one can locate the question of, there are many formulations for it. Why do we go backwards? Why haven't we progressed? Is really as the central animating question of entire Arab intellectual modernity. So when I was young in Egypt in the 90s and the early 2000s and starting to be intellectually curious about the world, of course you have to encounter this question everywhere. And of course the various answers of it, and also the intrinsic connection between it and the question of Israel, Zionism, Jews, Palestine. As a matter of fact, I would say that the question of Israel-Palestine is the central both answer and mechanism through which this question has been discussed, articulated, so on and so forth. And so I just decided to engage in it, or was engaged in it. I don't think that you decide, you're simply grasping to questions. And I ended up thinking about it very differently than most of the people who usually think about it. And yeah, through...
Okay.
Boss,
Yeah.
wrap it up.
I don't really have anything else. There's a whole bunch of other media that I thought might be relevant, depending on the pace of it. But one thing that I wanted to mention is when I mentioned glory, I was talking about the idea of one's own achievements as being a worthy thing, and which the reason we have this is that at some point in history, the idea of human achievement, of humans being able to rise to achievement that was admirable, had to happen. It was something that we did not have. Right? The reason that everybody gets to think about what to make of their lives, to make something great of their lives, is because there was a reassessment of how great human beings could be in general. And that required heroes. It required amazing heroic work that inspired people when they saw it, when they heard it, when they walked around the buildings that they saw constructed. They saw what human beings could do. And that belief became stronger. And that was also kind of the first time that I think you could live a little bit the sort of life that I'm describing, including some women. There were women who were able to work in convents and to be writers, but to basically run their own lives for the first time because they were writers, because they could. That was a little profession that they could trade in the convent. They could publish. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. I didn't really have much more beyond that. So thank you guys for showing. It's wonderful.
Guys, thank you very much. We're now done with the meetup, and we're officially starting the after meetup. So feel free to go.
It's 2:51 a.m. right now.
Feel free to go get yourself some snacks after the meeting, and go and sit here in
הבנתי
the
למה
space.
ישנת רק שעתיים בלילה. השעון שלך לא בסדר.
כן, אני צריך לתקן את השעון. זמן.
נהניתי מאוד, היה מאוד מעניין.